Hello everybody and welcome back to the Coffee and Geography podcast. I am up in Northumberland, of the north of England. I've travelled all the way up here from Norfolk in my little electric vehicle, 250 miles. I have kind of like a tailgate tent attached to the back of my car, and I'm sleeping in the back of my car. And I'm here because of a regenerative teacher or educators CPD event, or continuous professional development event, called GroundEd. Now, you may remember a certain someone from last season called Meryl Batchelder, the wonderful Meryl, who are a great friend of mine, who is a kindred spirit when it comes to climate action and empowering young people and fighting for their future. And if you recall that episode, if you've listened to it, you may remember she talked about having a bit of land that she holds eco music festivals in. But what she started to do now, with the support of the Green Britain Foundation and other supporters like Oases, and I'll put the links in the description for that, is something called GroundEd. So that's GroundEd, as in being grounded, but with a ground ed for education. So fantastic little event, but it's open air. There's a tent and like a main big tent where the main kind of like plenary sessions, and there's live music going on as I record this at the moment in the evening. And there's other little kind of like tent marquees and kind of awnings over the place at this I think Meryl said it was 5 or 6 acre site, which she and her husband owns. And it's just lovely. There's about, I think Meryl said about 90 people here. You'll hear from Meryl in a minute, for the weekend. So Thursday, the 17th of June through, or the 18th of June through to the Sunday. And I'm feeling great. I mean, I'm recording this intro actually after the first full day, Friday afternoon. But you'll hear clips coming up from bits and bobs throughout the weekend, and some little chats with people as well. So honestly, I think all CPD should be like this if you're an educator. I mean, it's just wonderful being out here and in the hills in Northumbria. So enjoy the listen. And first of all, we'll listen to Meryl talk to us a bit about GroundEd.
Yes.
You are my wonderful friend, Meryl. And you finally got me up here.
All the way to Northumberland.
All the way to Northumberland.
And the sun is out.
The sun is out. So we are here at your humble abode, your little
Homestead.
mini estate.
Yeah, my homestead.
For GroundEd.
GroundEd, the first and foremost ever GroundEd. And I think it's going all right. I'm quite enjoying myself. We have about 90 educators who are interested, either teaching or providing educational outreach, or providing workshops and talks. And so we've had a really busy day today. It's been Friday. We're just about to start with a couple of live music acts to entertain everybody. The bar is open, which is obviously unusual for CPD. There is a real festival vibe about it, which I love. And then we've got it all again tomorrow.
Yeah. And so this is going to go at the front, the beginning of the intro, but we're having a little walk and a talk on the Friday evening, which is after day one, I suppose. But some people came here yesterday. I arrived here yesterday.
Yep, some people are being
50 mile driving my EV.
In your EV?
Yeah, but it's the first time I've visited. You talked a lot about your homestead when we had a chat on the podcast before, but now that I'm here, it's just incredible. It's
a 5 acre small holding, regenerative small holding. We've planted 1,000 trees. So when we first came here, this whole landscape that we see in front of us was bare. There was a few little trees around the outside, but if you look behind us, Kit Marie, we've got what is that? Well, how tall do you think that tree is? I mean, about 40 foot?
We were talking about doing maths and
I know. Somebody said that. Using, I mean, it must be 15, 20 meters anyway.
Yeah.
And we planted those.
Yeah.
And to see trees get that big in 15 years since we moved here, we grow 50% of our fruit and veg. We haven't got any livestock at the moment. We've done away with the chickens, but we have 50 different types of apple, and we've used it as a festival site for the last few years. Just each summer we'll have a party for 200 or 300 people. And this year I said I wanted to do something different. So we're trying out GroundEd. So just environmental educators, which is a really different vibe in some ways.
Yeah.
But actually has been, I think quite eye-opening. And things like when you go to teach a CPD, it's usually like death by PowerPoint, and you end up looking at the screens and or watching a bit of a video, and it's like you're being told off, and the food is beige, and it's in a dark room, and everybody's a bit tired after the school day. And they call them twilights, and I don't know why, because, you leave at 6 a bit fed up at me.
Twilight because you're knackered.
So what we're doing is we're doing this over midsummer. So tomorrow night, with Saturday night, is actually going to be the shortest night of the year. It's the summer solstice, and we're going to have a fire pit, and we're going to have a little bit of time around the fire, and after some more live music. So we'll have 4 acts all together, and we've had some amazing vegan food. So
it was so good. Like the lunch today.
There's plenty.
And a lot of it came from your allotment.
Yeah, absolutely. I made the broad bean hummus myself.
Yeah.
So we have a little secret garden. We've got composting toilets. And we've got just some amazing different practitioners who've come in to help us with workshops and things. So if we ever did a GroundEd 2, obviously, Kit Marie, you would be invited to be one of the people presenting. But I wasn't, I wouldn't have wanted to ask you in a way, because you come from so far.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, most people here, are from kind of the
Northeast,
region,
the
the
Northeast, definitely.
But there are some people who've come a little bit.
Tess Draper from
Tess and I have come from Norfolk and Suffolk, so
So we Ministry of Eco-Education, we're really, really grateful. They've part funded this so that it's possible. Because although the tickets weren't particularly expensive, we know that schools haven't got any money. So
everyone knows you in some way, shape, or form. You've got a great rapport with even the people that you might be like not know that well, acquaintances. And it's just the vibe is just brilliant, and it's just the kind of thing where when I was teaching geography and the head of department, I kind of wish that this is the kind of the way that CPD should have been done, really. And because you not only do you need intellectual ferment and you need information and you need stuff like that, but you just need to regenerate. And how many times have we come away from CPD and we're burnt out from the CPD? Yeah,
you've been told off. I can't actually take any more.
Whereas we've got a rejuvenation, regeneration.
So it's called the recalibrator. So it's a labyrinth.
So it's a labyrinth of rope on the floor.
I think you need to be recalibrated.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. So it's effectively a permaculture idea of where you walk through the labyrinth.
I'll do that tomorrow. And
definitely.
I'll put on here. Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. So I mean, it's just fabulous. I think more of this should happen in a few, and we will try and see if we can get down the east of England. But it's just amazing. I mean, how many people roughly have we got here? So we got
about 90 people.
90 people. Yeah, and I'm just looking over at the field, and we've got loads of camping vans with their tops up. We've got tents up on the slope, and you've got
we know how to party, and humans are meant to party. We're meant to have fun.
Yep.
And being a teacher is hard. And I'm really concerned that you and me both have left the classroom because we're in a climate emergency and biodiversity crisis. And if we don't allow teachers to grow and be and play and enjoy and learn how to really connect young people with nature and how entangled our world is, but how we can try and ask questions and encourage philosophy for children. And I was listening to Katharine Burke this afternoon and Geoff Norman and some really amazing people with incredible experience, but asking them to do it without PowerPoints has been, actually quite genius because they're in a tent. They can't, I'm not setting up a PowerPoint in a tent.
No,
but there's loads of eye contact and there's loads of like a little bit of banter. Whereas normally in CPD we don't get banter.
No,
we don't get chat.
It's good for the soul. So in fact, because I say this recording, this part of the edit will go at the front of the podcast. You've actually just given a little bit of a preview of what people are going to listen to. A little bit of clip of Geoff, a little bit of clip of Katharine, some other bits and bobs. So
fantastic.
So Meryl,
Great, let's have a hug.
Yeah, and we're going to hug. You might hear a clink on the microphone, folks. We're having a big hug.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Actively listening, ready to learn. Okay, welcome. This is a little bit of a dream come true for me. The fact that I have a room of educators wanting to learn, wanting to connect, wanting to be in nature in an immersive experience is literally joyful. I love you all for coming. I'm saying that now in case I get really fed up with you by the end. So, I am first and foremost an environmental scientist. I'm also a teacher, and I am very concerned about the climate and nature crises. I am saying that now because I want to be open and honest with you. We are, and there's no children here particularly, in shit. So what can we do? We can get active. We can be busy. I do not lie awake at night worrying about the emperor penguins. I worry about things like organising events because that's much more proactive, constructive optimism rather than hope in the absence of any action. So I am so thrilled to have so many people here. Honestly, literally can hardly contain my excitement. But I have some. So we know that nature connection is so incredibly important. We also know that the government is utterly failing to put it into the curriculum. We know that children don't have time outside in nature, and it's critical. The work that Oasis does, I see, and I see the joy on faces that they bring to people. So, but we know it's also really important for adults to be able to spend time outside and just enjoy that space and listen and watch and observe and learn. And so we don't get time in our busy, hectic schedules. CPD, they talk about twilights. Well, tomorrow night's the summer solstice and it's going to be a proper twilight. So just a joy that we can be here together and try and find some sort of common ground to say this at least is where I have found something. Not quite sure what we're going to find.
So that was the invitation to experience regenerative education, not just talk about it.
10 years ago there weren't that many programmes, and I stumbled across one, and it was called Water Explorers. I was like, that's important, let's do that. So with my young people in Corbridge Middle School, I started doing Water Explorers. My Water Explorers team turned into Water Explorers Legends. They won it was a competition, and they won it 2 or 3 years in a row as UK national champions. We had trips down to London from Corbridge, and it was just, it was joyful watching these young people learning about water and sharing their stories and learning. And so I'm very, very grateful to Global Action Plan. So one of the first people I turned to when I was thinking about speakers to entertain you was Liz Knapper, who's works for Global Action Plan for Good Life Schools up here in the Northeast. And when she said yes, I was just overjoyed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to hand over to Liz.
I started with this because I'm here to talk to you about awe and wonder and connecting children to nature. And the reason that this book came about was that in, I think it was 2012, the Oxford Junior Dictionary, the people who create that decided that they would remove, I think it was about 50 nature words from the Oxford Junior Dictionary aimed at 7-8-year-olds because they deemed them irrelevant and they weren't words that children were using, and so we needed to replace them with words that better met with the words, the language that children were experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So they replaced them with technology-based words. And for example, acorn lost its place in the dictionary to analogue. Yes, it's horrifying. The list is horrifying, and the spell book and the Lost Words poems came about as a bit of a protest against this. And the poems are beautiful, and they all sort of feature some of these words that have been lost from the dictionary. So conker and acorn and dandelion and lark, and words that really children used to know and should know. And so this book was written in 2017, and Robert Macfarlane, who wrote it, says this: the right names, well used, can act as portals into the more than human world of bird, animal, tree and insect. Good names open onto mystery, grow knowledge and summon wonder, and wonder is an essential survival skill. And hopefully the answer will surprise me, given the audience that I've got, but I wonder how many of us last took a walk where we weren't doing it with a purpose to get from A to B, but actually to just go and to slow down and to see the world through the eyes of a child. And what I was going to do, but I wasn't sure of the setup, so I'm going to do this as an invitation to do at some point over the weekend, was to invite you all to take the opportunity, whilst we're in such an amazing setting, to take 5 minutes to just slow right down, to wander, to have a look, find something that fascinates you. Imagine you're a 3, 4, 5-year-old. The things that we wouldn't take a second glance at, there's a worm over there, or there's a bee on that flower, or there's a leaf falling from a tree, that we would not give a second glance to. Take that opportunity to just really spend some time thinking and seeing through the eyes of a small child, and hopefully that will give you a little glimpse of awe and wonder. Children are naturally curious. Anybody who's got children in their lives, whether it's their own, whether it's because they teach or whoever it is, you will know that they ask lots of questions, sometimes at the most inopportune moments, but they are naturally curious. They want to know stuff, and we really need to lean into that. And I think sometimes in our very busy lives, it's very tempting to be like, yes, not now, I don't want to stop and look at that puddle, yes, I know there's a worm, but actually how often do we stop with them and sort of indulge that? And I think one of the things that's really important when we're talking about trying to connect children with nature, particularly from an early age, but actually I would argue all the way through, is that if we embrace what they're doing and basically try not to go into teacher mode with them and actually celebrate that moment with them, so how we react to what they're noticing is really, really important. And if we react like that, and if we react with sort of a negative response or with disinterest, then that can have a real impact on the interaction and the effect that has on that child and what that child takes away from that interaction. And I think that what we maybe need to sort of be working towards is actually embracing that and being in the moment with them and sharing that fascination. And even if you've seen a worm a million times before, reacting like it's the first time you've seen it and sharing that moment with them makes a really big difference to their experience of that moment and what they take away from that moment. And so really, rather than sort of using the opportunity as a teaching moment, which can be really tempting, to sort of go all factual, particularly if we've got teacher heads on and I'm an ex-teacher, to start relaying facts about the woodlouse or the worm, but actually to take a step back and to act with curiosity, and 3 questions or sort of 3 prompts that I like to use, and this has come from some nature journaling work that I've sort of been doing a little bit of. The 3 prompts are: I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of. And so when you are presenting something to a child, or when a child presents something to you, you can share that joy with them. I notice that ladybird is a slightly different colour. I wonder where that ladybird has been. I have quite a vivid memory of my childhood in my primary years. And I can't remember the exact age, but I remember, so my dad used to work he worked at the local agricultural college and he lectured in conservation. He also worked for the Soil Association and for the Farming Wildlife Advisory Group. So he was very big still is very big into nature. And I remember as a child at primary school, him pointing out the bird's foot trefoil to me. And I don't think I've referred to the bird's foot trefoil. I don't think I've seen many bird's foot trefoil in the last 30 odd years since that. Have you got some here? I'll go look later on. I haven't come across them very often, but out of all the information that has been put into my brain over the last 30 odd years, I can remember the bird's foot trefoil because there must have been a moment where he showed me. We were out on a walk at the track at the side of our house, and he bent down and he showed me, look, it looks like a little bird's foot, and we had a little moment there engaging and looking at that flower. Given the opportunity to watch badger sets, I was given the opportunity to help him to trap moths, to help identify what moths were there, to go on bat walks. And I am absolutely convinced that early connection to nature, because of my parents, is why basically every step I've taken in my career and education since then has been related to nature, conservation, sustainability, and education because of those early moments. And that early connection is so, so important. So I set up a community interest company called Back Into Nature, and I started running as soon as lockdown finished, and the first things that people were allowed to go to were outdoor classes. I spotted an opportunity, and I started running baby and toddler classes outside in nature. And they were hugely successful because they were unique. There was nothing else like it. It wasn't forest school. There were a number of different sessions, from really gentle, like sessions sort of sitting around in the grass and the Botanic Gardens in Durham, if any of you are familiar with it. Really lovely space, free of dog poo, so a brilliant place to take little ones and feel that they're safe to be on the grass. Babies with bare feet in the grass, babies with feet on the tree bark and in the moss, and watching bubbles and lying back with babies and getting mums to watch and look up at the canopy and the leaves, and those moments of awe and wonder that I've been talking about. So what can we do? Closing, because I know people are hungry now. So I guess that my sort of takeaway message from it is what we can do is provide whatever opportunities that we can to support children from babies through to teenagers, provide what opportunities we can. I'm very privileged because I'm in a position where my dad was able to provide those nature connection opportunities from an early age. Lots of children are not that lucky that they have somebody in their life that connects them with nature, but you might be that person for that child. So if you're the teacher at the school and that child shows an interest in something, support it, embrace it, because that might be the only support that they get with that, and that might just spark the curiosity. And there's research after research, and I haven't got any facts and figures to hand, but that shows that the earlier we make a connection with nature, the longer it is likely to last, and the more likely we are to take positive planetary actions as adults. And so I imagine quite a lot of people in this gathering can remember some kind of early connection with nature, and what would be wonderful is if we can connect as many children with nature as early as possible. They will then grow up to care about nature, and then when we're talking about the issues in schools around having to have somebody who cares enough about it to be the sustainability lead, to drive the lunchtime clubs and things like that, we're bringing those, we're supporting that, starting from the bottom and working upwards. I started with a poem, I'm finishing with a quote, and it's from the absolute legend Sir David Attenborough, because who else? No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. Thank you very much.
So we do get in touch with the atmosphere of the forest. So it's the sensory experience of the forest. It's all that you can see, all that you can hear, but a lot of it is actually all that you can smell. So although you might think, well, it's lovely, it's the lovely greenness that's relaxing, and it is, it's actually what you're breathing in that's really doing your body the good. Trees emit chemicals called phytoncides. And these are chemicals that when you breathe them in, they actually stimulate your immune system to be breathing in near trees. So it's not just a sort of relaxing, going for a lovely walk in nature, it's a lovely chill out and can help to lower your cortisol stress hormone. So we would do. So first of all, we would say our intention to forest bathe. So we're going to start our forest bathing session. And then we're going to come through our threshold, which is going to be this archway just here into the secret garden. So as you come through the threshold, just imagine that you're leaving your worries on this side, if you can, for the duration of our session. As we come in, just try and leave everything from the outside world out here, and we'll have our special experience of our forest bathing. And we'll make a circle. And we're going to have a stretch and a deep breath to start with, just to relax our bodies. So we're going to stretch our arms up while we breathe in.
So I find these are really good for developing oracy. So like I was saying, the children in my setting come in often at one word level. They just haven't heard words, they haven't maybe been talked to. So they need lots of real life experiences, and we follow the EF approach of the Shrek approach in early years about getting that shared attention and that back forth conversation and expanding what the children are saying. So, you know, they might sort of go up and go, leaves, but you'd be like, oh yes, they're talking about the colours and the textures. And it just makes them, some of our children are ready for reception now, that they've got to do a stretchy sentence and tell me a bit more than, well, you know, why would you like to go play and explore? And they just go Play-Doh. Oh, come on, tell me where you're going to go. So it's just, you know, and having them high expectations of, you are going to talk to me and I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to get down at your level and I'm going to help you find all these new words that you can use to describe it. Like I said before, we've got lots of herbs that we plant, lemon balm, things like that. They go and use that in the mud kitchen as well. We put the rosemary in the mud kitchen. And I think mud kitchens are really, really important. I think mud's really important. I think children should be mucky. I think they need to get mucky and get their hands dirty and feel it. And, you know, we get clean again. But actually, it's good for us as well. But I do think a mud kitchen is really, really good. And if you can get some rosemary growing maybe, chives are easy. And we do put those herbs into the home, into indoor provision, but also into the mud kitchen. And like I was saying, I think mud kitchens are so good because that prime area, that physical, if they can't do this in the mud kitchen, they are not going to be able to be writing what they need to write when they go in Key Stage 1, because they haven't developed all these muscles here and this. But, you know, so, you know, 3 and 4 year olds, one of the objectives in development matters is write some or all of their name. Well, if your name is Ruqayya or Abdul Wasi, your name is very, very long, and also you might have never played in a mud kitchen. You might have not ever picked things up. You might not ever developed the script. So you can't be writing some or all of your name if you haven't been outside, you haven't played in the mud, you haven't picked up the big water trough because you want to put water in. You know, so I do think things like that in your outdoor provision are really, really important. And you don't need to buy anything for a mud kitchen. All we've got is, I mean, we have got a very good caretaker who's made a sort of a counter. It's just some reclaimed mud that is done. We got a microwave from the skip on a tip that was getting thrown away. We've got a microwave in the mud kitchen, so it's got that familiar thing from home. We get pans, pots donated, or we get them very cheaply at the charity shop. But I don't think we've ever bought a pan because when people throw the pan away, the straw will have it. And everybody knows in nursery, they'll just bring me stuff and go, what can you do with this, Hannah? Oh yeah, we'll do this with it. So yeah, definitely. And I think things, you know, stainless steel things like the teapots, we have things like that in our sand and water. We don't have like plastic buckets and spades and things. We have spoons and ice cream scoops. So the ice cream scoops are brilliant in the sand and in the mud kitchen. If you often have Facebook pages, like we've got freebies in Kirklees, and somebody will put on there, oh, we'd really like plants for nursery. So I did that. I was like, I want some real plants in nursery, but I want plants, you know, that are big. But, you know, if they've got too big for somebody's house, they're not too big for a school when they've got lovely high ceilings.
From connection, we moved into a deeper question. What are we part of?
A few years ago, I read a book called Earthwood's Transformative Ecological Education, and I just loved it. I talk about it an awful lot. It was transformative in many, many ways for me as a teacher. And I probably didn't get to use it quite as much with the children in my own classroom, but it's actually a guiding light to my work that I do now. So I asked Katharine, thinking that it was going, you know, she lives in Norway, and I was like, oh, Katharine won't be able to make this, but I'm going to ask her, because if she does, it'll be joyful, and I've never met her in person, so I had to drag her here to give her a big green hug. So it was with utter delight when she said, absolutely, I want to be part of that. So I'm so pleased that you're here, Katharine. I can't wait to hear what you're going to do with the apple. But please, can we actually put our hands together, because Katharine is an amazing person.
So I'm gonna start with a story that I think follows on from the question that Liz asked. And this was in a class of 16-year-olds. And it was interesting because I had taught from grades 1 through 4, grade 7, grade 8, and then all the way up to grade 11, which was 16-year-olds at my school. Many times these students I taught them when they were in grade 4, and I taught them again when they were in grade 11, so it's interesting to watch them change and shift. And this particular lesson was about sustainable fashion. And we were talking about fast fashion, and we were talking about sustainable fashion. And the kids were really comfortable with me because they knew me. They'd known me for years. And this one girl said to me, "You know, miss, we don't really care. We know exactly what you're going to say. We've been hearing it for years." Right? Some of you are nodding. Okay. And she said, "The truth is, we're going to buy what we want." And so I said, "Okay. You say you've been hearing it for years. Does it change what you do?" "No. We're going to do what we want, you know?" And then the kids started, they were kind of laughing and making jokes, and it was a class that used to make a lot of jokes. And I said to him, "I noticed that a lot of times when we get into this kinds of conversations, there's a lot of jokes going on. What's that all about?" And the same girl looked at me and she said, "It's a coping mechanism." And at first I thought, well, she's wrong. She doesn't know. She hasn't learned, right, what we are trying to teach them, right? And I thought, well, actually, she's exactly right. At 16 years old, she is trying to find her identity, and she is looking at the culture we have. She is looking at the culture that we have created, right? And she's looking at consumerism, and she's looking at how to build her identity and how to be, who she can be among her peers. And so in her mind, she's doing exactly the right thing. She's doing exactly what the norms of our society have set up for these young people, right? So then I started thinking about, well then, how do we change this? How do we change the culture, right? How do we change the way that we see the world, and especially the way that we see ourselves in the world? Because what I realized was we can change a lot of rules, we can set a lot of constraints, we can tell kids what they should and shouldn't do, but if we don't change the societal paradigms, those kind of overarching ideas about who we are in the world, then we're not going to be successful. And a lot of times I would have students who would go out and do the sustainable thing with the class, but when you asked them what they actually did on the weekend, they weren't out doing that, right? Or there were a few, but then there were others who said, "Miss, this really doesn't mean anything to me." And how do you respond to that? Because there are a lot of them, right? So I started looking at that. So I'm going to ramble a little bit around a little bit of philosophy and a little bit maybe of weirdness, and then moving toward how do we do that? How do we get there? And then some suggestions at the end. And I want to start by asking you how you are. But asking you how you are. How are you? How do you come to be? How does your body come to be sitting in this place with its gravity against the ground, right? With its flesh and bone and blood? How are you? How do you come to be here? How does it happen that we exist, right? How does it come to be that we are here in body and here connected to each other, connected to our mental thoughts, connected to society, all of this. How are we? How does that happen? And in order to ask the question, I'll start with maybe an easier question, which is, what did you last eat? And when I thought about this, I thought, this is a silly question because we all last ate the same thing. But we had such a wonderful variety, right? So I want you to turn to somebody and talk about two things. First, what was one of the things that you last ate? How did that come to be? And how does that become you? How did that come to be? And how does that become you? There's a challenge. We're going to have more interaction later, but is there anyone who would like to mention something that they last ate? Yes? The almond thing. Okay.
I wanted to. It was delicious. It was as delicious as it looked.
The almond thing. How does an almond come to be? How does an almond come to be? And how does it become you? Any answers? How does an almond come to be?
I'm a secondary science teacher, I'm not going to tell them.
You're not going to tell them.
An almond comes from a tree.
An almond comes from a tree, right.
Most of the tree comes from carbon dioxide in the air.
And most of the tree comes from carbon dioxide in the air. And the sun, I heard the word sun. And the soil. And the nutrients, yes, okay. I know I'm in the right group because you're not saying Tesco. Thank you very much.
There's insects involved.
And there are insects involved. And there's pollination involved. And there's a whole bunch of intricate interconnectedness involved, right?
Generations of stars.
And generations of stars. I love that. Yes. So if I eat this apple is the love child of apple blossoms, isn't it? This apple is a love child of apple blossoms aided by bees and other insects. And as you said, by a tree which is fed by water and sunlight and carbon, right? And when I eat this apple, that energy which came from sunlight is converted into energy in my body and gives me agency. And this is an agency that allows me to care for the apple tree. And there's an entanglement there, right? So who are we? How are we? I like to say we are sunlight incarnate. Think about that for a moment. We would not exist without the light eaters. And who knows the book? Because I'm loving this book. This is a book by Zoe Slanger called The Light Eaters. And she talks about this. And she talks about how plants are the only ones that eat light and turn light into matter that the rest of us can eat. So without that, there is no us, right? We are sunlight incarnate, indebted to the plant world. Imagine that, right? And how often do we think about that? Do we teach that to our children? We teach photosynthesis as a process. Learn this formula and give it back to us, right? And we teach perhaps some food science, right? But do we teach entanglement? Do we teach who we are, right? Because Newton could not even have thought of gravity without the glucose in his brain that came from the apple and from the other food he eats, right? And so this kind of thinking about who we are entangled with the rest of the world is both seems like really difficult to get across, and then at the same time as simple as, what did you last eat? How did that become you? How are we connected? Right? Because the truth is, we don't need to reconnect because we cannot unconnect. We are connected. We are in fact inseparable from the rest of the living world. And yet we forget this. So why is this important? I think it's important because, and the link to the girl at the beginning of the story, is that the society in which we live has come to perceive a human exceptionalism, right? Has come to perceive an anthropocentrism, humans at the center of everything. Where even when we teach about food, let's say, we often end up teaching about us doing to it, right? What we should do to that, rather than the entanglement, right? And so this human exceptionalism also leads to a culture of extraction, because it's over there and we need it, which leads to a culture of consumption, wanton consumption. We all need to consume, but how much, right? Which leads to a kind of alienation, I think. A kind of an alienation from the rest of the living world. And then through that alienation, often I see in young people, to a sense of dread, a sense of apathy even, a sense of lack of care, because they don't know how they belong in this, and they look for belonging everywhere else. They look to AI for relationship, because we're missing that belonging. So the shift that is needed, I think, is a shift that was needed at a level where we go all the way back to that human exceptionalism, and we look instead at entanglement. We look at interdependence. We look at how we are entangled, and that leads to a deeper sense of inseparability. I don't want to say connection, but this perception of inseparability that we can have with us. And that leads to belonging. So in the book, we talk about some very small things that we have done. So my answer is twofold. How do we make such a big shift in the world? A big shift of who we are and who we understand ourselves to be. And my first thought is everything, everywhere, all at once. Right? But my second thought is where you are with what you have, with how you can. And both of those are true. Aren't they? Both of those can be true at the same time because we are many. So each person, where they are, with what they have, with how they can become everything, everywhere, all at once. So there's these small things you can do which can create a difference. Complex systems are nonlinear. So if we wonder if we can make this shift, the first thing I would say is, if you look at where we are now, it seems like we're headed in the wrong direction. But complex systems don't act in linear ways, and there are cascades, And there are tipping points in social systems too, right? And uncertainty is vibrant. We don't like the uncertainty, but the alternative is death. The only thing certain is death and taxes, right? But the alternative is static, right? So the uncertainty is vibrant, and uncertainty can go both ways. So when we're feeling that uncertainty, I think that's important. And finally, look for the cracks. And here I'm quoting somebody I love named Bayo Akomolafe. And he wrote an essay. And in his essay he said, I am wary of doors. Doors lead to corridors. And to, ways of being where you fit within the walls. Right? And he said, I am wary of doors. I like cracks. And I laughed out loud when I read this. And I thought, there's another, I don't know if you've read the book Hospicing Modernity by Vanessa Andreotti. But she talks about our culture as being a house of modernity and about how we need to hospice the end of this society that we're in, this human-centric, this extractive situation of culture that we've gotten ourselves into. And she says it's like a house with these walls, and I would suggest that schools are a room in that house, right? And therefore schools are not fit for purpose with what we're actually trying to do here, right? But we can look for cracks. We can look for the cracks because, first of all, cracks are the sign that the structure isn't holding. And I think if we look, we know that's true, right? And second of all, cracks are where the seeds grow. Cracks are where the soil can sift in. And then the seeds can grow and they spread the cracks, right? So I would suggest that we look for those small places, right, where we can insert transformative ideas.
Geoff Norman here from CDEC. He is an absolute star, ex-head teacher, but now going out and trying to do this work that we need so much of. So I'm going to hand over. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Meryl. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always a bit of a shock to sort of come to something new like this or be invited. So I'm really grateful to Meryl for inviting me. And I hope I can bring something of my experience and what I've found out through my sort of 20 odd years as a teacher and head teacher, but also environmental work that I've done and the current work with CDEC. I've been working with CDEC for 3 years, but my association goes back probably nearly 10 years because I worked with them as a head teacher and a teacher. And basically, we're all about global learning. We're a really small charity, but we've celebrated our 40th anniversary this year, so we were really pleased to get there. But we're still hanging on by our fingertips because funding's quite hard to come by. So I work part-time. I also work part-time for the Northumberland National Park on a Welcome to Nature project, which you might see me sort of like pushing national park information at you as well. But between the two, I feel really sort of like satisfied with what I'm doing. And I had a fantastic time as a teacher in school, and as a head teacher, really, particularly given the opportunity to sort of like drive what I thought was important in school. And today, I would equally be happy. I'm here to talk about P4C, philosophy for children, but I would equally talk about nature journaling and forest school and beach school, which are my other two educational passions. But philosophy for children is today, and I think it's so relevant to what we're all trying to do. And I love the fact that we've got a big poster here with, which is just covering questions. Because philosophy of children is about questions and exploring deep questions, not just the sort of like the surface stuff. Part of the point was that P4C is very much about building a community of inquiry, and I think we've automatically got that here, because that's what we're all about. We're curious and interested people about what's going on in the world. But little activities like that just help connect us a little bit more. And it's also about noticing. I talk a lot when I'm doing nature journaling teaching about noticing and paying attention, but maybe not so much about paying attention to each other. So it's an opportunity, so you've paid attention to each other, you've noticed, and maybe that's led to some thinking or just that closer connection with each other. And I think it's almost linked to some of the David Attenborough quote earlier, and he says, I see, once I see something and I notice it and I think about it, then I wonder, and that's when we get into the questioning and the inquiry and the philosophy that we're really sort of talking about here. So P4C, it's about that community of inquiry, and there are 4 sort of key words when you're setting up that community and you're maintaining it that we try to come back to all the time. And there are 4 C's, and there are 4 more C's later on, which I always find very confusing. But the first ones are caring, collaboration, critical, and creative. So when we're trying to work with our young people, we want to build all of those qualities into what we're doing. The caring is very much about paying attention to other people, taking your turn, listening, active listening. Collaboration is adding to what other people are saying. So if you're listening to other people's comments and thoughts, you can add to that in a collaborative way. And critical is, sometimes it sounds like a negative thing to be critical. And I hope you're not critical when you look at your drawings of each other and critical of what you see. But when we're talking about ideas and not people, we're talking about the ideas, then we want to be critical, and we want people to be open to having their ideas criticised without sort of feeling personally offended. One of the great things about my oldest son is one of his favourite phrases is, "But is it really, Dad?" And I have to justify whatever I'm saying to him, or his mum. And he's like one of the most critical thinkers I know. And creative, and being creative is sometimes, in its broadest sense is what I'm talking about, not being creative necessarily in an artistic fashion, but being creative and looking for solutions and thinking about, and being empathetic is often being creative because you're trying to work out what somebody else is thinking. And I think the skills that P4C builds are more important than ever. They've always been important, but we're very much, in an age of masses of information that's firing at our young people. Lots of it is misinformation and disinformation, and they need to have these skills of really digging into what someone's saying to them or what someone's showing them and saying, but is it really? How do you know that? So Superior's got a theory of change, or thoughtful, a theory of change, and it's all about the type of people that they want to create. Through participation in philosophy for children, they talk about creating flourishing individuals that contribute to a better society for all. And I think that sums it up quite nicely. That we want people to flourish as individuals, but we also want them to create that society. And from a CDEC point of view, we talk about wanting to develop global citizens that have compassion, they make a contribution, but they're also resilient, open-minded. And a word that comes to me, has popped up in my sort of vision recently, is decent. Just being decent people to each other. And sadly, there's not enough of that, is there? One of the key things about philosophy for children is it's an inquiry. It's not a debate. So no one's going into it saying, oh, I'm going to win this. I'm going to get my point across and win everyone over to my side. So we would pull as many questions as we could from the children or the young people. It's perfectly feasible that we're using it with adults as well. And as I say, we would then, we would pick one of those questions to look at. Okay, and if you're voting, you might just be one person, one vote. you could put the question, you might have 4 favourite questions and put them in the corner of the room and do a corners activity, which is quite a nice one, voting with your feet, because then if you've got 2 clear favourites, you could ask the other ones to then transfer their votes to, you know, the 2 front runners. Yeah? Or you could give them 5 votes and say, you know, pass them out around the questions. But the key thing is that they are leading that, and there are, you know, it's their choice as to what the question is. And then you spend a lot of time, or you know, as much time as you could, exploring those questions and asking and thinking, what would other people think? You know, why do you think that? You know, why is it important how symmetrical it is? You know, there are all sorts of other things that you could ask about it. And probably easier, you know, sometimes when you use a story or a folk tale, and characters will come out and they'll behave in certain ways, and you can challenge that through your questions. So once you've picked, we then explore, and then.
Use the microphone again.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, I was going to say. Yeah. Once we picked, we would then explore, and then we would revise that question. So we might refine it. Yeah, sorry, refine, not revise the question. Refine it so it becomes something that, you know, a really good philosophical question, and work through how that works. And then the E is for evaluate. And the evaluation is really about, have we done a good philosophical inquiry? Have we used the 4 C's? Have we been careful, you know, and caring with other people? You know, have we been critical, or have we just let someone dominate because we always listen to them and they, you know, dominate the conversation? So that is, in a nutshell, is how a philosophical inquiry works, and it's very much a structured dialogue. Okay. So yeah, there are all sorts of reasons, and I think hopefully it's clear to people why it's valuable for the people to be able to explore ideas, be critical, accept criticism themselves, and work on it and really reevaluate what they're thinking, and value the opinion of everyone in the room. And one of the things, I came across a podcast, I think it was the other day, which was called Curious Not Furious, and I was like blown away by the guy that was talking. He was an American guy. He was black, and he said, I made a determined effort that I was going to be curious, not furious. And he was sought out, you know, people who were like lifelong, you know, racists, and sat down with them and said, and wanted to have that conversation and find out, you know, where they had commonalities. What did they have in common? Where could they agree on stuff? And it kind of like really worked, and you know, and it changed people's minds. Whereas, and I found, you know, I'm in awe of him, because I just thought, you know, I don't think I could do that. So, you know, there must be people in the world that you kind of would find it really hard to sit down with and have a conversation and just go, I'm just going to approach it with curiosity and listen to them and find out how they got to that viewpoint or why they took those actions. And if we could do that, that would, you know, more across, you know, across political divides and all those others, then that would be amazing. And I think, you know, philosophy for children could be the start of that for future generations, in that, you know, they are prepared to listen, and they won't let their emotions take over before, you know, giving someone a chance to talk and explain where they're from. And hopefully we can change minds in that way as well.
I just kind of wanted you all to know who Ruth was and why I chose her to work with, because I am not an educator, I haven't a clue, and I'm actually not that interested in the curriculum and how it works and where it fits, because I had a terrible experience at school. But so we're a team, you know, we're bringing this into schools together. So I'm the animals, I talk to animals, and Ruth talks to kids. So Messages from the Wild is a series of interviews with animals, offering them a chance to give us a perspective on their environment. By hearing from these animals, we're able to relate to them more easily, to understand them and empathise with them. So my story, which I'm sorry I told it at breakfast, but is that I was studying nutrition, then I studied soil. This is only about 10 years ago. And my background is in radio, so I finished my nutrition, I started studying soil, and I thought, how can I combine my radio skills with soil knowledge? So I went down to Devon and interviewed a guy about composting, and I was beside myself with excitement. This really sunny garden in a village in Devon, Nicky Scott, Dr. Compost was his name, and oxygen and nitrogen and sticks and the composting experience. I'm sure the chemist knows all about how that works.
That's biology, I think.
Anyway, we did this interview. I recorded it. It was about half an hour long. It was fascinating to me, but I wasn't sure who my audience was going to be. So I thought, I'm not sure where to put it, who's going to listen to it, how it's going to work. So I said, Nicky, would you mind being an earthworm for 5 minutes whilst I talk to you? And luckily he said yes. And we sat down on this bench in his sunny garden. I'll never forget this. And I said, one of the questions I said to him was, are you male or female? And he said, that is a very personal question. I happen to be both. And of course we know, well, hopefully we all know that earthworms are hermaphrodite. But the way he asked it, he didn't say, no, I'm actually hermaphrodite. He was just brilliant.
Character.
He was brilliant at being the character of the earthworm, and that can't be easy. But he worships them, obviously. And then I took that back to Bristol, where I lived, and played to a few people, and they said, yeah, keep going. And I've interviewed about 70 animals. And but what I learned from the earthworm is I just love earthworms now. And you saw me this morning in slightly weird. Is I pick them up off the pavement, after the rains, and they're all stuck on the pavement. You can say, if you're an earthworm, you definitely don't want to be on tarmac. So I pick them up and I find people's gardens in Bristol and I fling them in as I walk past. I'm quite gentle though, but it made me see the earthworm in such a different way. And that's what Messages from the Wild is to see these animals from their perspective and try and think like them. Today we will be listening to some of these conversations with animals, so please let your imaginations run wild, because I want you to try and imagine what it's like to be that animal, but also put yourself in the paws and claws of those animals, but also think, what do I want to know about what it's like to be that animal? So if you just try and think about that as we play you some of these. And I'm going to give you a little lecture about biodiversity because climate change takes centre stage, but I'm coming in from the biodiversity angle. Biodiversity of life on our planet is essential for the processes that support all life on Earth, including humans. Without a wide range of animals, plants and microorganisms, we can't have the healthy ecosystem that we rely on to provide us with the air we breathe, the water we drink and the food we eat. And I interviewed some phytoplankton a while ago, and they provide 50% of our oxygen. I mean, who knew that? Did you all know that? I was blown away by that. I just couldn't believe it. Obviously, it makes for a better life when people protect wildlife because they really want to, not because they have to. If we can learn to live in harmony with the extraordinary animals we share our world with, they'll have a much better future, which in turn will give us one too. So that's the end of the lecture.
Yeah, so what we're hoping to do today, what we are going to do today, is we're going to show you a new kind of learning approach. So it's one where children don't just learn about the animals, they become them. They speak for them and they listen to them, okay? So we're designing a national children's biodiversity learning programme, which is going to use cross-curricular subjects, researching animals and then embodying them through structured speaking and storytelling. And then understanding is shown through dialogue rather than traditional recall.
The green cellar slug. Do you live above or below the ground?
Oh, I live above ground, absolutely. Indoors, outdoors, in the woods, pavements, waste ground, old buildings. We're pretty adaptable. We can live in most environments as long as the humans have been there and sorted them out a little bit for us.
Do you ever wish you had a shell?
Never. No, those days are gone. We're so progressive. I mean, we are super snails. Why would you want to be restricted by that heavy, clunky, unbendable thing that you have to drag around everywhere, when you can be sleek and streamlined, and slippery, and you can get through any kind of crack you want? So we can get into loads more environment.
Can you stretch up to 20 times your normal length? Is that true?
20 times I think would be stretching it if you expression, but I'm pretty supple. I can get through very small spaces when I go in and out of my house.
So why do you want to go inside a house? What's in there that you like?
Well, it's my house. It's modest, but I'm quite happy to have the shelter. As long as it doesn't get too hot and dry when I would go outside again anyway, then I'm quite comfortable living indoors.
And are there any plants that you don't like munching on?
I don't eat live plants. We sell the slugs. We eat mould, mildew, cat food, cereals, compost, vegetables.
So you're quite useful to us, really.
I guess you could say I'm useful. What I like to think of myself as is a synanthrope. So I'm very proud to be a synanthrope. Wherever humans go, we go.
So are you important for our ecosystem?
I'm pretty important. The humans keep on bringing food. I keep on turning into compost in the compost bin. I clean up any things they've left behind as waste. I'm a scavenger. I recycle that. When I have babies, they take that nutrient on. So we're all part of the circle of life.
You talk about babies. You are both male and female, and so does that mean that you can reproduce on your own?
Nobody really wants to reproduce on their own. It's a lot more fun to do it with a partner. I haven't done it yet. I don't know how it's going to be when it finally happens. Am I going to be a boy first or a girl first? I don't really mind, but I'm looking forward to having some little sluglings of my own.
And why do you leave a slimy trail when you move around?
Well, we can't really move without leaking, I'm afraid. The truth is, we don't have any legs, we don't have any limbs. The way we get around is to use a bit of our body moisture to lay down a carpet, and then we essentially swim across that using these ripply motions I'm making right now. The slime is great stuff, though. You can use it for so many different things. You can make an extra tough slime for climbing up and down vertical surfaces. We can put different things into the slime if we want to repel predators or perhaps disguise our trail so that things can't follow us. And we can slime all over things just to generally leave messages for other slugs too.
What would you do if I picked you up?
I'd wriggle and squirm. I'd produce an extra kind of watery slime and land all over me. That's the kind of thing we would do. That's why we don't need a shell. All these mammals and birds that are around tend to think we're a bit repulsive, and so they don't attack us or eat us anyway. So, Bob's your uncle, no shell required.
Which animal do you admire the most?
I suppose it would have to be Limax maximus, that's a leopard slug or great grey slug, and they're quite impressive. We come across them from time to time. They're a bit aggressive, they have a territory and they like to keep us out of it. But you look at them and you've got to think, what an animal.
Apparently, on average, you have about 27,000 teeth. What do you need those for?
Well, we all need teeth to scrape away at things. The teeth aren't very big, and to be honest, I lose count myself sometimes. They come and go, so we lose them, and we just grow new ones at the end of the ribbon. So the ribbon is in my mouth. It's like a kind of conveyor belt of thousands and thousands of teeth. The exact number doesn't really matter. It's what you do with it becomes.
Do your tentacles have special powers?
Well, I've got 4 tentacles. The top 2 are called omatophores because they've got an eye on the end of them. They've got a special power, I suppose. I can see light and dark. They help me find my way in and out of small spaces, but I can't really see an image or anything close up. All 4 of my tentacles, though, can help me smell food from a very long way away.
Have you ever lost a tentacle in an accident?
No, I haven't, but I know slugs that have done. They manage okay. They lose their stereo ability, so they sometimes find it a bit harder to tack to the source of a smell or a light. But the good thing is we've grown back.
If you had a message for us, what would it be?
It would be keep doing exactly what you're doing. It's great. Things are looking really good for green cellar slugs. Come back in 10 or 15 years' time, there'll probably be twice as many of us in Britain. It's going well.
Okay, he was a good one, I thought. I lucked out with him as well, I think. Really funny slug from Cardiff Museum. I mean, who'd have thought?
Can I ask a question? Do you agree the questions you're going to ask with your
They don't know what I'm going to ask.
Your questions are excellent. They're just so good. And the answers as well. But
yeah, they don't know. The reason I don't tell them is because I want it to be spontaneous. I want his reactions were like, they were great, right? Yeah. So if he'd planned them, imagine.
Yeah,
he would have looked them up and done sciencey stuff, and it'd be like,
it's not a performance; it's a creation.
So yeah.
Did you learn anything new?
Yes.
From the slug?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what did you learn?
Ribbons of tea.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Different types of slime going up.
Yeah.
And what the thingy?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the new respect for slugs.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So thinking, so you can probably start to see now what learning opportunities are there. So what learning opportunities did you hear?
Listening skills is a
listening skills. Yeah.
Language, vocabulary.
Yeah,
interesting
vocabulary.
Words in there.
Yeah. So we've got so we can look into literacy.
That was a really good example of oracy, wasn't it?
Exactly,
really,
and that's where we're focused. It's when I've been teaching English in the constraints of the university, I try and do everything through speaking rather than, because that's how you learn a language. Yeah. That's how you start. Mm-hmm. You explore, you listen, and then you speak and you practice. And so this oracy is what I'm delighted about, to sort of collaborate with Annabel. So I think you can start to get a snippet of where we're going with all this. So, but did anything surprise you? I mean, there was a lot of surprises, wasn't there? The information and...
It was really, you go, slugs, but he was very good, what's the word, ambassador for slugs.
Yeah.
And in terms of the oracy skills, what you've got there is somebody who was able to, without being aggressive or without being challenging, he was just very self-evidently a positive spin that he was putting on how to talk about the situation that he was in, whatever. And I think that's something that's really important for climate education.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's all about the negatives, and a lot of today has been about the restrictions that schools have put in.
Yeah.
But actually, he's telling a really good story.
That's right.
And it's down to the questions as well. But he is telling a really good story, and I think that's something that that needs to be broader.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Katharine?
And also, it easily moves away from that anthropocentric perspective that I was talking about yesterday, and also the storytelling. That culture changes through stories.
Yeah.
And so these stories change culture. It's
a psychological thing there as well. I now I've met a slug.
Yeah.
And had,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
You start to build a relationship.
I know they're nice. They're
next
time.
Yeah.
They're really nice. They're doing their best. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like
Next time. Yeah.
By then, GroundEd felt less like CPD and more like a community in motion.
Reshape the future!
Not through having all the answers.
Reshape the future!
But through showing up day after day with courage, compassion, and curiosity.
Reshape the future!
And as we shape the future, let us remember one lesson. That regenerative practice teaches us well. Nothing thrives without renewal. Not forests, not ecosystems, not schools, and not educators. For too long, many of us have worked in systems that celebrated exhaustion as commitment and burnout as dedication. Come on. But regenerative asks something different from us. It asks us to recognize that rest is not a reward. Rest is a requirement. Especially as us as activists. We have to prioritize that. Right hands up. I will prioritize rest.
I will prioritize rest.
I will put my feet up.
I will put my feet up.
I will asks us to recognize that rest is not a reward, rest is a requirement. That saying no can be an act of leadership. That protecting our well-being is not selfish, it is essential. Because it is easier to give from a cup that is overflowing than one is empty. Can I get a witness? The young people in our care do not need exhausted superheroes. Can I see a superhero stance? They need healthy, grounded, authentic adults who model what a sustainable life looks like. Adults who understand that growth and rest are partners, not opposites. Yeah? Adults who know that caring for themselves enables them to care more deeply for others. We shape the future!
We shape the future!
And every single day we are given another opportunity to just do that. The wonderful thing about life is that every day is the first day of the rest of your life. Every day offers a fresh beginning, a chance to try again, to do better, to be better, to reconnect with your purpose, to remember why you started, and to continue becoming the educator, the leader, the colleague, the human beings you're capable of becoming. As we party for the rest of this evening, I hope you carry more strategies and resources and think about it and use this opportunity to let this music and rhythms just get in your body and let all of these ideas percolate and just let them be grounded within yourselves, and so you can leave from here full, energy full, batteries full, love full, everything full, cup overflowing as we party here tonight.
Stay here.
Every night before bed, Meryl gets
Share it. I hope you carry courage. I hope you carry hope. I hope you carry connection. I hope you leave knowing that your work matters. The conversations you have, the environments you create, the encouragement you offer, the example you set, the lives you touch, all of it matters. Because education is not just about preparing young people for the future. It is about helping to create a future worth living in. So, let us go forward boldly and dance the night away!
That feels like the right place to pause. In part 2, we move from connection and understanding into practice, action, resilience, and Meryl's final big green hug.